Hi everyone and welcome to the studio. We are painting a beautiful bright white and blue Greek house today with some gorgeous bougainvillea all over it. So grab your paints and let's get started. Right then, so you may have seen particularly Santorini, the blue and white houses across the most beautiful vibrant blue sky with a blue ocean, and it's just a very pleasing sight to behold. We're just going to have a go at something simple because I think this is a really good exercise in looking at how shadow can just create something absolutely amazing for you. So it's going to be all about angles. So I'm going to begin by drawing a nice sort of vertical but slightly wobbly line, because the beauty of a lot of these houses and buildings is this sort of soft edge of the architecture, and I'm going to just curve that off like that, and we're going to sort of create a sort of I'm sort of going a sort of this, a sort of that, because these things are nice and sort of wobbly and wonky. And then that's going to come right down like that. So this is a wall. Okay, you with me still? What I'm going to do now is we're going to create a little sort of curving round set of steps. But the steps are going to be really quite sort of soft and natural, so we can sort of begin by sort of placing them in. Maybe we just have 3 like that, and then the rest is just a nice path. And then here we're going to have a lovely blue door that might lead us into a courtyard. Let's give it an archway, and I'm going to just extend that further there to give it that sense of the side return. I'm going to do a nice window here. So vertical line, then a slightly larger vertical line, and then just following the line there, and again I'm going to just come inside to the side return of the window and just make that little box inside it, and then I will just create a little sort of set of window panes. Last week we did a sort of nice slightly wobbly, slightly loose watercolour painting of that beach scene, and I'm trying to sort of carry on that rather nice loose style. So I'm just going to just finish off down here, and we're going to put a nice big pot . And of course, for those of you who are not keen or feel anxious about drawing this whole bit yourself, you can just take a screenshot of the piece when you've got it to a point that you want to copy. I'm sort of holding off doing this door because I keep on changing my mind of what detail I want to do on it. But for this, I want to create a bougainvillea just sort of coming over the top there. And that's looking really nice. So let's have a look. So we've got a door, and I think what I'll do is I'll sort of give it a line down the middle But remember, of course, it's going to be more visible on this side because of course it's just tucked into the side return there. Now, I've never been to Santorini. I've only been to a very small portion of Greece and the Greek islands, but it's some of the most beautiful sort of imagery I've ever seen of the satisfaction of that colour combination, the vibrance of it all. And I wanted to leave a nice decent amount of space for the blue sky. So let's begin with that. So if you need to take a screenshot of that and get your drawing helped along by that, no problem at all. I'm going to get some colours mixed up for the blue sky. Cobalt Blue Deep is going to be a really key colour for this painting. You can see already it's just gorgeous and vibrant, but I am going to add some Windsor Blue into it, particularly for the sky. Just want it even more vibrant and fresh. Now, I have got a little bit of bougainvillea just sort of creeping out past the white wall. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to mentally, not mentally, I'm actually physically doing it as well, giving myself a little bit of space to not paint. Okay, I've got a size 6 brush here. I think I'll also want a larger pointed round. This is my Pro Art Connoisseur brush, which is available in my shop. But to begin with, I want to have the control of a slightly smaller brush. So you can see I'm just leaving a little bit of unpainted space there. And then I can just stretch that out a bit. That brush wasn't quite wet enough. There we go. So yeah, I feel a little bit sort of uncertain of painting every sort of nook and cranny with this brush. I mean, it might be all right, but it's up to you really. So we're just going to fill in that sky. I like a nice sort of raw edge to my paintings at the moment, so I'm not going to sort of have a neat edge or anything. Actually, that's working all right, isn't it? It's doing all right. But it's going to be in what we don't paint that really sort of makes this painting, because it's all about the light and the shade. And I will just sort of put in a few bits of blue sky into those bits there. So we'll let that dry and we'll get on with the next stage. So it's time to start painting in some of the details. So I'm going to begin with this large terracotta pot, and I've got some yellow ochre here, and I've seen in some reference photos these lovely sort of ridged pots like this. So all I'm doing is with a size 2 brush painting in sweeping curves that are just getting a little less sort of curved as we go to the top. And then with my size 0 brush, I can take some different colours. I've got burnt sienna here, maybe a bit of cadmium orange, and just to sort of play around with just the edges, the details. Got some moon glow, that's very dark. giving it a nice sort of slightly more defined edge there. I can just draw some of that colour in. Oh, it would be nice to go there, wouldn't it? I am very much looking forward to some sunshine at some point. Ant told me not to talk about the weather today because, of course, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be watching these videos the minute or the week I put them out. So I've got to remember that. But yeah, I don't know. You could probably hear the rain beating down on the roof, but it's not this kind of blue sky outside today. Oh well, it's good for the garden. I'm going to just get the top in there, and I actually think it might be really nice to maybe add 1 or 2 more pots around the place. You could add in, I might pop in one there just on the step, or even some of you get these lovely little sort of little arch, like miniature windows in the walls sometimes, that have plants growing out of them as well. So I think I'll pop in some of those and maybe have a few plants coming out. But yeah, feel free to sort of, add a few extra bits and details if you want. But yeah, we'll get the terracotta pots painted in first. So just painted in a very little sort of pale warm colour there. And I'm going to get a bit of buff titanium. I'm just sort of mixing in all these like colours I've got in the palette, browns, a bit of moon glow, just to give myself a few options. And what I want to do now, a bit of Payne's grey as well. Yeah, a bit of Payne's grey would be nice in with the buff titanium. I want to create a bit more of a texture of a colour on the ground. That's a strange colour. What on earth has my brush got? It's very green. Okay, maybe, there we are, that's a bit better. I want to sort of do a pale kind of textured floor that is going to be one of the first bits of texture and colour that we're going to see in this white town. So that's looking really nice. What I want to do is use it on the steps, and what I would like to do is almost create the sense of stones on the fronts of these steps. If you want, you could get a little bit of Payne's grey or moon glow just on its own, quite dilute. And just do a little on there. Because all these colours are going to dry a lot lighter. In fact, you can see down there that's dried quite a lot lighter already. But we just want to get just that little bit of texture sort of on the ground. So now I'm going to just take some of this very pale buff titanium mixy colour and just get a bit of that texture. And when I say texture, what I'm doing is I'm doing sort of dabs of colour with this size 4 brush, but leaving little bits of unpainted space so that you see an uneven ground. And don't worry if it sort of bleeds into any of the rocks that you've just painted for the steps, that's okay. But we've instantly given ourselves a new colour here for our ground, and then it's contrasting with the white walls already. So we're going to let that dry, but one other thing that I will use it for is just the top and side there, and there, but we will be coming back to do more with that later. Whoops! We're going to inject some vibrant colour into this piece with the presence of the bougainvillea. So I've got opera rose, alizarin crimson and permanent rose all woken up, and I've got a size 0 brush, and I'm going to have a lovely time painting in dabs of colour. And it's lovely because we can get them right out there, can't we? Because we left a little bit of unpainted space. So the flowers from this far away can just be nice little dabs. And we will be adding deeper colours to them, but we start just with some nice opera rose. It's a good colour, and you can venture a bit further from the branch or the trunk you've already drawn. Try and sort of vary the size of the flower clusters you've got. Did I just pick up the right colour? Yeah, sometimes it just goes a bit darker than you think. And once you've got your opera rose in, you can then add in some layers of permanent rose, sort of adding low lights essentially. So I'm just actually going back through with a slightly more diluted opera rose here, and already that's creating just a slightly like different colour, a lighter colour. So once that's dried, I can get permanent rose in. See if a little bit's dried here. There you go. And just use it, like I say, as a low light. I have got in my palette yellow ochre, burnt sienna, raw umber, moon glow and Payne's grey, and between these colours I'm going to start placing in the branches of the bougainvillea, and then I will be adding in some greenery. So I've got my size 0 brush, which is not the smallest of brushes, and I am going to sort of, I've got my pencil line which I'll use as my main reference, but I will also be venturing off that with different thicknesses of brown branch, because if you see a bougainvillea, it really tangles out from a central branch, and then I will be able to put in the leaves as well. You can get a really nice, quite fine line with a size 0 brush, but of course if you want to have a bit more control, you can always go down a size. I do love a small brush. So you see we've got that in, and then if I take some sap green or some green gold. Green gold's lovely. I think it's good to start with green gold probably, and start to create sort of clusters of little dabs, maybe just a little bit smaller than the flowers you painted previously. Start with some green gold and then add in some sap green to just give it a little bit extra depth. I'm now continuing on with the green and just doing a few little of these shrubs that are growing out of the windows here, just with the green gold, and then I can add a few low lights with that sap green. Wait for that to dry a little bit. And then we've also got our two other little pots, so I will just start with, always start with your lightest colour first, and then you can add in colour as you go. I'll try and do a slightly different type of plant. I remember when I went to Alicante with my friend Roz, we noted that what we refer to as house plants, they just call plants, because lots of these sort of lovely sort of tropical green leaf plants can only exist indoors in England because of the temperature outside, but of course in lovely hot places they can live anywhere. So lots of palms and that kind of thing. So yes, got that green. Get those darker colours in there. And also you can get a few sort of coming over the edge there. So we're building up essentially to get to a point where we've set our scene, and then it is all about the shadow. We're not quite there yet. We need to do the blue door, we need to do the windows, but soon this whole piece will really come to life when we place in all the light and shade of the shadows. I've woken up cobalt blue deep and a bit of French ultramarine, although I don't have that on my brush yet. I'm first going to start with cobalt blue deep, and I'm using it in a sort of, it's concentrated enough, but you can see it's quite wet, so I'm stretching it out on the page. And we're just going to create a nice door using the tiny bits of unpainted space. Size 0 brush is pretty good for this. You get enough control. And now I'm going to sort of paint inside the panels, just leaving that little bit of unpainted space around the edge. But I'm not painting it in perfectly. You can see I'm leaving little bits. We want this door to have character, and also just the style we're painting is not overtly precise by its nature. Okay, and now I'm going to take some stronger French ultramarine blue and just add bits here and there. And just get a little bit more texture on this door. So I just painted in the window pane here with a bit of burnt sienna mixed with just a little bit of Payne's grey, and then put in the sky colour into the windows, because of course that glass is going to reflect the sky colour. Now this all looks very pretty, but it's quite flat, quite basic. So now we are moving into the rather exciting stage of shadow. And the way we're going to do that is I've got a huge amount of Payne's grey here. The first thing you want to do is think about where your light source is coming from. For me, I like the idea of it being sort of quite high in the sky, coming down this kind of direction. So therefore, this wall here will largely be lit, but of course it's going to have the shadow coming down the bougainvillea. The side returns here will be in shade, down here will be in shade, and we'll also get a sort of, I like to sort of maybe do a sense of the shade sort of coming down from quite a high point. So this is all about being brave, but your piece will look so amazing once you're done. So let's start over here. My Payne's grey is quite dilute, and I'm going to begin with a size 4 brush. I'm going to start with something sort of fairly sort of easy and obvious, is these rather sort of straightforward side returns, but I'm trying to avoid painting over the bougainvillea too much. So I suppose when I say it's easy, it's maybe a little bit challenging. And the other thing that we're going to be doing after we finish the painting is rubbing out the pencil. And that also makes a big difference of pieces like this. It really lifts them. So I'm looking forward to doing that. And don't forget that your shadow mix is, well, all colours lighten when they dry with watercolour, but particularly in this case. So the next thing I'm going to do is I am going to start to create this sense of the shade from the bougainvillea over the house. So I'll start sort of down here with the pot, and I don't need too much colour on my brush. I'm just sort of building up the idea that this is all casting a shadow on the wall behind it, and of course this pot as well. And of course, if you've got something with texture, how is the shadow going to hit that texture? So I'm just sort of trying to mimic it a bit. And that's already looking really cool. I like it very much. The door. So the door is going to have shadow coming down over the top, and also in that doorway. Or rather like that. And then our pot here is also going to have sort of shadow down on the steps, on the wall, and of course the plants. I'm going to go back down here, and remember I was saying that this wall here is going to be largely in shadow. But what's amazing with the curves of these wonderful buildings and streets is that the shadow might sort of have faded out. Just get that little bit in. We'll talk about those steps in a second, but just, there we go. So this shadow might actually start to fade out, meaning you might also want to put in a bit of a stronger sense of it there. And then of course, how is it going to hit down here? Well, whew, that feels quite bold, doesn't it? Got shadows coming from all over the shop. And now I'm going to look at this little walkway. So what you tend to find is when the sun is coming down so from on high, you're going to get the shadows on the steps there. And what I want to do with a slightly smaller brush is get that slightly stronger colour and just hit it across the bottom there. Don't be afraid of shadows. They can really make a piece come to life that maybe wasn't working for you. Because of course the light is what finds everything, isn't it? So, I mean, I've got every intention now of building up the shadows on this pot. This pot is getting all the action when it comes to shadow work. And it might feel quite a lot at this stage. And if you feel a bit like, oh my God, I think I'm ruining it, you can always step away. But it's going to be all right, trust me. Now on this door, we can also have some extra sort of darker, heavier bits coming down. And even on your bougainvillea in places, you could have a few extra low lights of the more concentrated shadow mix, but just keep thinking about where the light is coming from. And also where there are textured things versus smooth sides. And we haven't even dealt with this wall yet, just you wait, just you wait. Okay. For this wall, I want to do something a little bit similar to how this wall worked here. So I'm going to begin with quite a dilute edge. Clean my brush off a little. And clean my brush off once again. Keep cleaning it off until it starts to feel like it's only got the sort of minimum amount that you want on it. Because I want to sort of dry brush a little bit on this wall to get some of that texture. And I am going to increase the darkness on that side, but it'll sort of come round and fade out. And then we have our window, so the light coming in from the top. I mean, so it means we're going to see all kinds of shadow. And we'll also see shadow from the top here. And you might think, oh, why did I even bother painting in anything nice in that top bit? But it's because you can see the contrast in it. It's just a subtle difference of colour, but it is there. And then this might be a bit wet, but we can maybe get a bit in. And the last thing is I want to just bring in a little bit of just one more element of shadow in, but I'm going to just let that dry for a minute, get it 100% dry, and then we can do our last little bits. And yeah, we've got a really atmospheric piece there. Okay, I'm totally thrilled with this. I've rubbed out the pencil and I now can just look at it and think, right, where do I want a few extra bits? So just maybe a little highlight of yellow ochre on the side of this pot. A tiny bit more definition on the windows, just in there. I added just a little bit more darkness on the side return in here, and now I think it just needs a little bit more defining some of those plants in there. But I'm so happy with this, and it's one of those ones that really comes together right at the end. So I hope you are encouraged to have a go and see that it takes a little bit of sort of getting used to with the drawing, but once you're there, you're away, and you can just put in some beautiful bright colours and then add some shadows in. But have a go, see what happens, and of course show me your paintings by tagging me at Winton Paper Co on Instagram, social media, wherever you find me, and just, yeah, enjoy. Watercolour is fun for everybody, but it is a journey. You start off feeling a bit like it's a bit basic, and then suddenly you have a beautiful figurative watercolour butterfly in front of you. So thanks so much for watching. I'll see you again next time. Bye!